Father. Hello, Father. I hope this message gets to you. This is your son, James Fitzgerald. I was once the apple of your eye, the up-and-coming star of Tetsudo, the sixth largest city in the world. Now if only you could see me, contemplating my final steps. My fall into Coral City was not a graceful one. I hope I had convinced you that I came here with a wide-eyed and can-do attitude. I believe this was a second chance, because in Tetsudo, I would have just been another doctor, just another middle-class kid rising up from the masses. Please, I was arrogant then, but listen to me now. Thank you for all you did for me and all you tried to do for me. When I heard they were sending me to Coral City as punishment for insubordination, at the time I was relieved. I had thought to myself, this is a place where I can do good. This is a place that needs doctors, that needs men of healing. If I knew what I knew now, I would have fought harder against it. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just stupid. You said it right, Father. Coral City did not need me. They already had doctors, and some of the greatest mechanics I have ever seen. I had been taught by lecturers with hundreds, if not thousands, of years of combined experience. But when I ended up in the Hospice in the Coral City Center, I found out how little I actually knew. Traditional medicine and standard cybernetics only get you so far. These Coral City doctors, they were like wizards. They moved with such fluent, elegant grace from patient to patient. They were pulling people apart who were nothing but scraps and putting them back together like a child puts together a jigsaw piece, tirelessly and effortlessly. They were like gods among men. They didn't complain. They didn't ask for payment or compensation. They just worked. If there wasn't an embargo on people moving from Pacific City and Coral City, the greatest surgeons lay claim to this being their origins. But even then, I know that the doctors here would just laugh them off and tell them to get out. Despite being the top of my class in every one that I took, I had 4 master's degrees. I was on top of the world in graduation. I came in to the Hospice d'Amore, a bumbling buffoon. They told me I had potential. They told me I had potential. This was worth everything. All the degrees, all the long nights. To hear these doctors tell me that, but they wouldn't let me near the operating tables. They told me I wasn't physically capable yet. These doctors were augmented with black market armor and weapons. They trained like soldiers because a lot of the people who came in fought back. And that was just the locals. They told me I needed to forget everything I had learned in Tetsudo. I was to be a nurse. I would follow the trauma squads and the ambulances to the sites and see the damage firsthand. I would offer first aid. I would be amongst the first responders. And they said after a few years of this, buying the augments I need, getting the armor, getting the training to deal with the other locals, then they would allow me to continue to practice my doctorate. The head doctor, Dr. Emmanuel Sebastian, they say he grew up in the trenches. This is a place far worse than Coral City, down deep below. He received no formal training, not so much as a basic certificate, and yet whenever the heavy boots marched down from the Queensland elevator, attempting to recruit him and learn what he knows, Dr. Sebastian would just wave them off. He just writes a few notes in a book and sends them along their way. The same is said for the other surgeons and doctors and nurses here. But Dr. Sebastian would let them go if they wanted to. Nothing is forcing them here apart from this sense of duty and commitment to the people. It's this lack of ego I wish that I had. I know it was my pride that brought me here. It is my pride that has now bathed my hands in the blood of innocent lives. I am one of the butchers now, one of those they call a jacker. Such a unbecoming name, but perhaps I deserve it. I take people's livelihoods, I take their limbs, and on very rare occasions even their lives. All this because I didn't want to be a nurse. I even thought I was a decent jacker. Perhaps, maybe I won't be able to be a surgeon, but maybe I can at least become one of the best in this field. The best jacker of Coral City. But even that illusion was taken from me not too long ago. I went to fence some of the parts at a high-end store. The shopkeeper was discerning, berating me for my lack of jacking capabilities, pointing out the imperfect scratch marks on the cybernetics. He said his clientele would know they were stolen. I told him he could just paint over them, reforge them. He laughed, just laughed in my face. He told me that was my job and that if he had to do half the work, he'd just do it himself. It took every ounce of my remaining willpower to fight against my pride, to not just kill the man on the spot. But I walked away. As I attempted to leave, the door swung open gently. I swear, I would have been love-struck if it wasn't for the fact that I felt a cold chill run up my spine. There she was, a dark brown trench coat covering her pale body. She had to have been heavily augmented. She looked like one of those porcelain dolls from Pacific City. She had black veins that ran along every inch of her body. Her eyes were like two fiery red coals, glaring not at me, but through me. She carried a large rifle and just casually wiping metallic shavings off the slide. Every movement was soft, graceful, even though I stood a foot taller than her and weighed likely 3 times what she did. That fear still gripped me. I looked in the reflection of the store's mirror, and I could see the once arrogant shop clerk adjusting himself, clearing the bench, posturing as she approached. She brushed past me without even a care in the world that I even existed. My shoulder touched hers, and as she drew back, I saw soft white hair beneath her hood, and just before the door closed, I looked back. Between her lips, I saw a yellow, toothy smile, something I now know as a promise. That is why your son sits here, in a mouldy, festering hideout, where I've been for the last 3 weeks. I know who she is now, the White Mouse. She's the best jacker in the cities, a mercenary, the last remaining survivor of the numbered dead, a legendary group of soldiers who took on the Rat King and almost won. And she is known to go after other jackers, those who operate sloppily on her turf, stumbling idiots like myself. Those of us who won't be missed or investigated are prime targets. I leave the last of my saved ace on my workbench, alongside a contract. I want to believe that she is only doing what she needs to survive. But I am terrified. I can only hope there is enough humanity left in her to grant me one final wish, to send this recording to you, my parents, so that you know what has become of me, of your son. Mum and Dad, I love you. I'm sorry I was a failure. I'm sorry I couldn't make it even in Coral City. But if you ever meet anyone who wants to come here, tell them not to. Tell them to fight with every fiber of their being to remain where they are, because you will just be wedged between the angels and the demons, and you will never know whose side you want to be on. Her footsteps are silent, like someone tap dancing with bare feet on glass. and I can smell that faint ozone that follows her. I can feel the magnetism in the air. I see her now, in the darkness, her smile, that yellow, toothy grin appearing from between the crack of her lips. I hope my end is fast, though I know I deserve a slow and painful one.